And this sometimes is hard. Once heard of a counseling engagement where the man and the wife were there, and the wife says, I just want to connect with him. I just want him to love me. And the counselor's just looking at her and saying, what do you want? She said, I just want him to love me. And he said, so what do you say when in these difficult conversations to try to get him to love you? I just tell him I want him to love me. And the counselor's just looking at them saying, you got to be kidding. This is a man. He's not going to figure this out. It's a little bit like I am with my dogs, and you've probably seen this Far Side cartoon, but go ahead and put that Far Side cartoon. So the guy's saying, okay, Ginger, I've had it. You stay out of the garbage. Understand, Ginger? Stay out of the garbage or else. And then on the other cartoon, it says what they actually hear. Blah, blah, Ginger. Blah, 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 Ginger. Blah, 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 Ginger. And sometimes, because we don't have any specificity about what it is that we want, what we're just kind of communicating is blah, blah, blah. I'm angry, blah, blah, blah. You're doing this wrong. And we're speaking in such global terms, there isn't a clear roadmap and marching orders for what we want to actually change. So here's some examples of this. A global statement might be, you're so mean to me, I'm tired of your verbal abuse. But the specific statement would be, when you get angry at me and yell like you did last night, it hurts. And I want to know that you can see how hurtful it is. See the difference? There's action steps with the specific statement. The global statement might be, I want to feel more loved. But the specific statement would be, I want you to hold my hand when we're walking together. I want to have a regular date night with you where we talk about our relationship and what we're feeling. Another example might be this. Go to the next slide. I'm going to have to read it. So the global statement is, you always do this. This is in a business context. You always do this. You promise me that you're going to do something, and then you forget about it, and you leave me hanging, and this happens every time I depend upon you. So because it's so global, it's just kind of attacking the person's character. But if we get specific, here's the example of this. No, you went right through it. There you go. I want to know about the project that you forgot and what happened. This is really important to me and our company. This is not the first time this happened, so can we talk about what's going on? If there's confusion about the timeline, I want to know how we can make this more clear. And I want to know that this won't happen anymore, and I want to discuss the consequences if it does. You see, sometimes we just want to throw out little things and global statements that don't give real clear direction to the person that we're trying to talk about. We need to get a lot more specific. Here's some things we need to watch out for. We need to watch out for the internal narratives that kind of run through our mind. John 8:32 says, then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And it's true that truth sets you free when you can identify what the truth is. The problem is, a lot of times we have internal narratives that are saying something different. A few weeks ago, I drove up to my garage. We have 3 cars with Carter driving and our little 2-car garage. And Tricia slowly is parking farther and farther over. And so I came up, and she was actually pretty close to the middle of the garage. And so I'm trying to get my car in. I'm just barely squeezing it in. I open the door, it opens this far, and I'm squeezing out. I have to squeeze. That door's got to come all the way open. But I'm just squeezing out and everything like that. And I'm like, I can't believe she's doing that. Now, what's true is she just doesn't want to peel off the mirror as she's backing out. So she's really scared of that. And she just got this new lease, so she's trying hard to make sure that doesn't happen. She's not really thinking about the impact it might have on the other side of the garage. But the true part of this is Tricia parked in the middle of the garage. This seems to be happening a lot. Okay, that's true. But here's what can happen if you allow some crazy narrative to take over inside of your mind. Tricia parked in the middle of the garage. This seems to be happening a lot. She doesn't respect me. Can I think of times that she doesn't really think about me? I think I can think of other examples. She must not respect me. She must not even love me. Right? And so we began to engage in these conversations because our internal narrative, and we start with, you don't even respect me. And the other person saying, I just parked a little farther over in the garage. What are you talking about? You don't love me. Well, because we're basing this on an internal narrative that really has gotten out of control, and we're approaching this as the truth. And when we are kind of basing our whole conversations on something that isn't true, it has the opposite effect of setting us free. It puts us in a no-win scenario where we feel like we're in a prison. Have you ever been the recipient of that kind of truth in that conversation, and you're trying to talk your way out of it, and you don't even know where it came from, but they're taking A and adding B and adding C, and that's equaled something that's just not even close to the motivation of your heart. We need to really recognize that we have the potential to have a miscalculation in our own perceptions. I swim at the Palm Desert Aquatic Club, and on the way out there, there's a school, and there's no turn on red. And it's a really quick light, and it just seems to take forever to get out of there. And I was parked behind this big SUV, and I was a little to the left of the SUV, and there's no turn on red. She's sitting there with her turn signal on, and I'm behind her, and I'm already running a little bit late. And the light turns green. So I'm like, but she doesn't move. And so I've got, some of you may have this too, on my turn signal, I've got a little friendly horn. Just like beep, beep. It's like, hey, how you doing? By the way, the light turned green. So nice. And, so I hit that and nothing happens. She still doesn't move. I'm like, why is she not turning? And so I hit it again. Maybe she didn't hear it. It's my little friendly horn. I'm like, yeah, you just got to go. And I'm watching they've got that timer on the crosswalk, and it's just clicking down, and 17, 16, and I'm like, I'm going to miss the light. I'm going to be late for my meetings, and I got to get out of here. And so I give a little bit more of a honk, 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 hey, she still doesn't move. And so I create this narrative in my mind, like maybe you might have, and I'm like, she's sitting there texting on her phone. She's not paying any attention. She's looking at something else, and I'm going to miss my light. And so I'm honking, and all of a sudden I'm really honking. I'm laying on the horn. I'm trying to get her attention. I'm like, hey, you got to go. You're going to miss the light. I'm going to miss the whole light. I'm going to be here for 10 more minutes. Well, then I can't really see because it's an SUV, but out of the other side, finally, this whole family emerged who was walking across this crosswalk just minding their own business, and they were on bikes, and they had one of these stroller things behind the bikes, and they're just going really slow, and he's looking at me like, you're insane, and he's angry at me, and I'm like, I didn't see you. and here I am honking at this lady, like I expected her to just take out this entire group of family. And finally she turns, and I turn, and she just pulls off to the side to let the insane person go around her. And I wanted to yell out the window, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. And so many times in relationships, we rush in like that because our crazy internal narrative is played. And we think we know exactly what's going on, and we simply do not. And so you got to leave yourself a lot of room for watching out that you haven't got the wrong perception. We also need to watch that toggle switch of intensity. When you turn on a light, there's two positions on the light switch, right? There's on and there's off, right? And in emotions, sometimes in these difficult conversations, we want to treat it like a toggle switch. So someone didn't pick up after themselves, on, 10, 0 to 10. Why didn't you do that? You didn't pick up after yourself, and we've talked about this before. And then in cases when there's dishonesty or lying or stealing or cheating in some capacity, it just goes on again, 10. And so lying, stealing, cheating has the same intensity as not picking up after yourself. We just have that toggle switch, 0 to 10. It's either 10 or 0. And instead of a toggle switch, we just need to have an accelerator. You can accelerate a lot, or you can accelerate a little bit based upon the circumstance or the situation. Sometimes things are not as bad as they seem, and we need to make sure that this is something that's true for everybody. Is it worth the intensity? Is it even worth the conversation? We've got a little saying that, is it true for God and the Beverly Hillbillies? Is it something that is an absolute issue of character that you need to have a level 10 intensity? something that's going to dramatically be destructive for the relationship or for the family or for the business or for the team or for the company or for the church? Or is it something that you're just simply asking for a favor? You just like them to change a little bit. And many times there's one person in the relationship that's a little more structured than the other person. One person is very structured and ordered, and the other person is a little loose and more relational. And it's very easy for the person who is more structured and more ordered to begin coming at the other person and saying, everybody knows this. Everybody knows you should pick up after yourself. Everybody knows that you should make your bed in the morning, and yet the loose structured person says, well, we never did that growing up. My wife and I, have had, after 25 years of marriage, we've had some of these conversations about being on time. And so I'm like, we need to be on time. And she actually likes to be on time, but she grew up in a culture in Argentina as a missionary kid where it was actually rude to be on time. And so approaching this like it's a foregone conclusion that that's just what you do and here's the right thing to do and presenting it in that way and having a level 10 intensity doesn't go a long, long way for someone that grew up in an entirely different culture with an entirely different set of rules. And so we need to have an accelerator pad rather than a toggle switch for how we deal with some of these different things. We need to watch our words. Instead of saying you should and you always, maybe we should say, you know what? I want this. Be very clear about what we want and what is their responsibility, what's my responsibility. Instead of making global statements that they always are this way or they should do this. Proverbs 18 verse 21 says the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat of its fruit, both good and bad. Isn't that so true? Our words have the power to build up and encourage people. Our words also have the power to diminish people and cause a lot of destruction. And that's why these difficult conversations really require a lot of thought and a lot of prayer. We need to plan and be persistent to resolve. We're going to have the conversation and resolve how we're going to respond in different scenarios that come up. I heard about a gal that, she wanted to break up with her boyfriend. And so she, got her friends together and I'm going to do it this time. And they're like, yeah, go do it. He's a bad guy. And it actually was a bad relationship. And she was violating some convictions that she had and was doing things that she felt like was not what God really wanted her to do. And so she goes in there with a full head of steam and says, I just think we need to break up. And all of a sudden, he starts pulling on the charm. And all of a sudden, he starts saying, well, you're so beautiful and I can't live without you. And we really need to be together. How can I live without you? And he starts saying this stuff that's feeding kind of some anxieties and fears that she has in and of herself. By the end of that conversation, she had once again violated those convictions. And she said, well, I guess we'll try it again. And she made some serious mistakes in that relationship. And here she is right back where she started. And she walked out. Instead of feeling relieved, she felt more anxiety because she knew that she had violated this resolution that she had made in her heart. And sometimes we need to resolve, what is it that I am for? What is it that I'm against? What is it that I believe? What is it that I don't believe? What is a non-negotiable in this relationship that we're having that we need to move forward? Plan a proper time and place. Persist in the non-negotiable areas. Keep trying. Many times this is not a one and done conversation, is it? You may have to have this conversation again and again and work through and strategize about what it is you're going to do moving forward, whether it's in a business, a church, or a marriage, or in a family. I'm going to persist in the non-negotiable areas, but I'm going to ultimately let go on things that are just my personal preference, just the things that I would want. Plan and negotiate who, what, when, where, how. Develop that plan and follow through with what's going to happen. Set limits to your participation in an ongoing destructive kind of relationship. Proverbs 19:19 says, a hot-tempered person must pay the penalty. Rescue them, and you will have to do it again. Isn't that